All right, welcome to the webinar where sponsorship innovation meets amplified impact. We're so glad you decided to join today. I'm Laura Nichols, the marketing coordinator here at Sponsor CX, the all-in-one sponsorship management platform that gives organizations and teams full visibility, real-time tracking, and organized workflows. Sponsor CX streamlines the entire sponsorship lifecycle, helping brands and properties focus on activations and relationships, ultimately driving stronger partnerships and more measurable ROI. Among the many great things we do here at Sponsor CX, I love our webinar series. Each month, we invite leaders from across the sponsorship industry to share their expertise, helping you to sharpen your skills, spark new ideas, and walk away with actionable insights to start applying today. We are so lucky to have Mark Harrison joining us today. But first, we're using a new webcast provider, so I wanted to walk through some of our new tools. If you have any questions or concerns about using our new webcast provider, you can submit a question through the Q&A or use the On24 help button. Both of those should be highlighted to help you find those. If you're excited to be here, you can start using our reactions tool. Throw up some thumbs up, excited emojis. We are so excited that you guys are joining us. We also will do a 30-minute discussion followed by a Q&A portion. The Q&A tool is what we will be using to keep track of the questions, so feel free to submit questions throughout the discussion, and especially at the end, we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. The recording from this webinar will be available with the same link that you used to log in about an hour or two after the webinar is complete, and I'll send an email out with the recording as well. Again, we are so excited to have Mark join us today. Mark Harrison founded the MH3 Collective, which includes Humanity, T1, Sidekick, and Sponsorship X, and was just inducted into the Sponsorship Marketing Council of Canada Hall of Fame. He's an expert at connecting brands with purpose-driven partnerships, co-founding initiatives like the Black Talent Initiative, and serving as board chair of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Toronto. He's also CBC Toronto Metro Morning's business columnist and a Marketing Hall of Legends inductee. He is a fantastic and well-respected thought leader in the sponsorship space, and we are so excited to have him join us today. Jason Smith is the founder and CEO of Sponsor CX, the fastest-growing sponsorship management software, serving hundreds of organizations globally. With 2 decades of experience on both the property and brand sides, including leadership roles in collegiate sports and corporate partnerships, he founded Sponsor CX in 2021 to bring efficiency and transparency to the sponsorship process. You can learn more about both Mark and Jason by clicking the speaker bios. They have so much more to them than even what I just said. They're so amazing, and I'm so excited for us to learn from them today. After this webinar, you'll walk away with tactics you can use immediately, practical ways to amplify your value, and real examples from emerging leagues doing breakthrough work. It's going to be fantastic. And an extra plus, today we are donating $5 for every attendee to Big Brothers Big Sisters. We are so excited you decided to join today, and I wanted to turn the time over to Jason and Mark. Thanks for joining, you guys.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it. And yeah, we're super excited to be able to participate and support Mark's initiatives here in Toronto. Speaking of Toronto, big news in Toronto.
Yeah,
as of yesterday.
Yeah, I thought this was a Jay's Talk webinar. I didn't know we're talking sponsorship and amplification, but big news, and excited to be back to the World Series.
Yeah, how many years? 30 something. 32?
93 was our last one. We went back to back, but like every sports team, we had this drought from like 05 to 15 where we were just like crap, and the fans stuck with them. I mean, one thing about Toronto baseball fans, which might surprise some of your international listeners, like, we love our baseball.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
yeah,
we were talking a little bit before this, everybody, and Mark's going to be making it to a couple of the games there, so it was pretty exciting. Mariners are customers of ours, so we're a little like, oh, feel sorry for them right now, but they'll rebound. They had a great season. Yeah, they had a great
series.
But Mark, let's just.
I'll tell you this: in the ninth inning, all we were saying was, "Don't let Riley up. Don't let Riley up." That's all we were saying, right? Like he was gonna hit it through the roof he was going to put a hole in the Rogers Center roof.
You know, it's so exciting, and it's awesome when you've got markets that haven't been there. In Toronto, you know, they got NBA championship, you know, a handful of years ago as well too. So there's a lot of really good things happening in Toronto right now. It's good. It's good.
Everything but hockey.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. The hockey.
No, we won't.
Well, awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. I'm excited to have Mark on. Mark and I were at the Sponsorship Mastery Association conference in Denver not too long ago, and we chatted. I don't know, for a while, hour and a half or so, and just went back and forth. It was the first time that Mark and I actually had a chance to meet. We'd heard of each other a lot and had a chance to chat for a little bit. Just talking shop, and anyway, afterwards, I'm like, hey, let's do this. Let's have you hop on and join a webinar, our Sponsor CX webinar. So, Mark, I appreciate you making time. This is probably the first time we've had a Hall of Famer on our podcast or our webinar.
Okay.
So anyway, I know but that's awesome. I love it.
I appreciate it. Let's be really clear. Getting inducted to Hall of Fame is a nice thing. It's a nice tribute, but it's also kind of like attending your own funeral, not to be morbid. So that's how I look at it. I do want to thank you as well, though, if you don't mind. I appreciate the support of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Toronto, and I'll do a call out, which is wherever you are, if there's a Big Brothers Big Sisters or a children's charity that's important to you. I was adopted. I won the adoption lottery. You know, my biological mom couldn't keep me, and I was awarded children's aid. And I just think the power of a strong adult role model. I won the adoption lottery. You know, without that, I don't think I'd be here. So I really appreciate, Jason, you guys supporting Big Brothers Big Sisters of Toronto. You think about our youth anywhere in the world, they are our future.
Yeah, happy to do it. And we want to support in any way that we can. And anyway, thank you for all you do and supporting that chapter there in Toronto as well. But well, let's jump in. I've got a series of questions here, Mark, that I want to ask you, and then we'll if those who are listening, we do have the Q&A portion here. So at the end, so we're going to go through a series of questions. Mark's going to kind of educate us on some on this innovation and amplified and what all that means in sports, and maybe some properties that aren't usually recognized, and how we'll talk about some case studies and things there. But then we'll get into Q&A. So as we get going, feel free to just drop your questions into the Q&A, and Laura's kind of monitoring it for me there as well too. But I have them right here so I can see them, and then we'll go through the Q&A portion. But Mark, let's go ahead with starting about asking what excites you most about the innovation in sponsorships right now. A lot of the things that are just newer. What's some of the things that excite you?
Well, I'm just going to preface it by saying I'm biased. My bias is that I believe that sponsorship can be at the heart of great marketing. In fact, it should be at the heart of great marketing. And when you look at the ability to connect with consumers, with customers, with sales teams, with employee groups, sponsorships, like, it's the secret sauce. Yeah. And organizations that do it well benefit from that. And I would say there's kind of two things that are almost dichotomies about what excites me. One is what I'm going to call a trailing indicator. And that trailing indicator is the Cannes Lion Advertising Festival, which happens every year in France. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could go there and you wouldn't find a sponsorship booth. You wouldn't find a sports marketing seminar. You wouldn't find anybody that, professionally did what you and I do. And now Cannes is overrun by sports marketing, Sport Beach, women's sports. Even the Wall Street Journal was having sessions on sports. The publishers of the New York Times, USA Today were there. You had George Russell there. And, if you're at Cannes this year in June, there'd be two things you'd leave with. One was how AI is driving everything in advertising, and how sports and sports marketing are central. And I call that a trailing indicator because it's not a leading indicator, because often marketers and awards and conferences we follow. The leading indicators are the things that we see in terms of the ability to leverage platforms for, democratization of sport in terms of access, right? So it used to be that if you weren't on television, you didn't happen. Now, as everybody on this webinar knows, that opportunity exists because there's so many different channels and streaming outlets and platforms that we can use. So what's happened, women's sports just didn't pop up over the last 3 or 4 years. People got to see it, right? Kickball has been played forever. People got to see it. People have been working out and running races against each other forever, but High Rocks put it on, right? I worked at a sailing school as a kid. Very hard sport to watch. I used to work in regattas. So what you're seeing is that is a big piece. Going back to my opening thesis, brands that connect, this is basic, but brands that connect with things that their consumers love are always going to be rewarded. And now that I can access those things that I love through these different platforms, you're seeing this entire, I'm going to call it entrepreneurial. I think it's obviously innovative, but the leading indicator was all these platforms. Now we're in that moment. And the trailing is really the Cannes Lions festivals of the world. And I think you're just going to see that more and more.
Yeah. And what are some of those emerging properties that are up and coming right now in your eyes?
One I'll jump into, pardon me?
Yeah, like in your eyes,
what are
some of those emerging properties that you feel like are making an impact?
Yeah, so the best part about this first example is, how often people who are golfers want to talk about golf. I'm going to talk about High Rocks, because if you could see from my shoulders down, you'd have no confusion that I'm a High Rocks participant. I'm the before. Remember the movie Tin Men where they're selling aluminum siding? I'm the before house. Okay, High Rocks is really reinvented fitness and fitness competition by doing something relatively simple, which is you're going to run a kilometer, and then you're going to do exercising in between, and you're going to test yourself against yourself from before. And what High Rocks has done is they've created this thing, they're basically calling the participation loop, which is training, right? So there's literally like 5,000, people on Reddit providing training tips for High Rocks, the preparation, the competing, the sharing of your scores, the data. And you look at their numbers, right? They're growing from about 45, 50,000 participants 2 years ago. They're going to be over 500,000 in a year. And the people, because of the time commitment, the travel, etc., it's an incredible cohort. And I'm never a big fan of awareness because I don't care about awareness, but I do care about the portfolio of consumer you're reaching. And not everything has to be about the high net worth individual. But with High Rocks, you get a beautiful combination of both high net worth and high commitment. And a high commitment individual is invaluable to a sponsor. And
what are brands doing with some of these emerging properties? Like what are they focused? What's some of the elements of their sponsorships and the marketing that they're doing is part of these that's making them an impactful place for them to be?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I love about some of these properties that are out there, and last year we ran a sponsorship conference in Paris during the Olympics, and I've always had sort of this crush, if you will, on SailGP. And we had a couple of folks from SailGP on one of our panels.
Cool. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool, because think about, you and I grew up in an era where you could watch the sport and kind of count on one hand who's winning, right?
Yeah.
You could keep the score yourself, or you had a scoreboard. That scoreboard, if it was the old school baseball stadium, was kind of manually activated. If it was your high school football stadium, you might have somebody with a hook and some numbers. Maybe you had a school that was able to do a little bit of fundraising and you had a screen. as I mentioned, I worked at a sailing school when I was in high school. And, my Monday to Friday job was working on the boats. My weekend job was I was part of the, on-water repair crew. And we had all sorts of different types of classes. And I could never tell who's winning, who's losing, when was somebody going the right direction, what were their
You don't have stadiums out there in the middle of the
love about
right?
Right. And so what SailGP's done, which is brilliant, is they've taken this stadium, which is the water. Oh, thank you. This video is going to do a much better job explaining for me. Created incredible technology, but then overlaid AR, VR technology. These boats have 125 different sensors on them that is providing data, feedback to the audience that's obviously watching it, whether you're there live, whether you're streaming it, whether you're watching it later. And so back to your question, this reminds me of the kind of early days of F1 and the Olympics, where now brands that are really serious about technology are really driving this as a use study, a case study and a use study. Obviously, Rolex is their title partner, and they've grown, dramatically with them. They've built a long-term relationship so they can tell the story as the sport emerges. It obviously has a very global footprint because of how they do it. But I think the most important thing is they've literally simplified this. Like, I'm an American football guy. One of my kids played rugby. I can't tell what's going on in a rugby game. I guess I should say match. I think the referee's always pointing in the wrong direction. So from a partner standpoint, now you've got this opportunity to immerse your business and do things very differently. And because of the data and what is fueled in the sport, from an audience participation standpoint, whatever screen you're engaging with, whatever platform you're connecting with, whether it be live or whatever, you're now able to leverage that. So if you think about like Accor hotels, right? With their all limitless hospitality program and their loyalties programs, for them, it's absolutely vital that they can take this data from an individual fan and individual event, input it into their systems and activate at scale to understand how to offer up different offers to people. And I think one of the beautiful parts about all these sports innovations, and answering your question off the top, is, I started in marketing. The direct mail people were the ones who told me they understood the customer journey best, right? Because they would mail you something, you would fill out a form, you'd mail it back, right? Now, because of that, because of the technologies we have, we're able to understand these customer journeys on a much better, more robust basis and take individual data points and scale them.
And that customer journey is so important to understand. I mean, that's how most marketers look at marketing in general, right? Of where their customers are going. And I think in sponsorship, it's easy to get outside of that. It's just like, oh, we're marketing, but we're not. Like, you just buy a logo or a sign. But there's so much that goes into that from a customer journey standpoint. And I actually want to go into a poll here. Laura, if you want to pull up that poll, how do you aim to engage fans most effectively through sponsorship? So feel free, those that are with us here, to go ahead and participate in this poll with us. But engaging fans through sponsorship and that customer journey is a critical piece, because if you can engage the fan in a impactful way, you can take a lot of the data points that you were talking about, Mark, and then do other things with them, right? And I think that's an important key piece on this. So so feel free to go ahead and hit this on. You can just interact with it right on your screen here, and I think in 10 more seconds or so, we'll go over and see the results. But no,
can I jump in on customer journey?
We're waiting for the results here, Mark. Maybe you can. This is just another question that kind of came to my head around this. Is when you talk about SailGP, which isn't totally widely known, but you got big brands like Rolex and Emirates, that are supporting, this these these emerging, properties. Why would an Emirates or a Rolex want to, it can be a little bit risky, right, to kind of go into one of these these that may not have the visibility as the NFL or something like that, right? So what is the how does it kind of compare to traditional sports that way?
Yeah, so I think one of the beautiful things about SailGP, and again, I have nothing to do with SailGP, so this is just me fanboying.
Yeah, totally. We both have nothing to do with SailGP. Yeah, we're just recognizing them.
As a global event, I look at it and say, is this a sport, right? Is this a technology incubator?
Yeah.
Or perhaps this is like the world's greatest travel advertising campaign. And if you think about the settings they go to, the ports they go to around the world, the stops that they have, the lifestyle that can just, even if all you said is, we're just going to sponsor this thing for the content and put it into our marketing, which obviously for Emirates, Ecuador makes a whole lot of sense. For Rolex, it's technology and lifestyle, and for other brands. But I would just sit back and say, what business are we in? And I think I want to make this tie back to your point around, looking at risk. Obviously, it's easy to go to places where you have the big eyeballs, right? It's easy to go there. But when you can get involved with a property that can provide you with other business benefits that aren't necessarily related to eyeballs, it's all about building that plan ahead of time, understanding what your data points are and your technology and your integration points. So we're getting some great feedback here.
Yeah.
So that's where I would say, for me, when I look at SailGP, I think everybody should think about, if you're a rights holder out there, you really need to make a decision. Are we in the business of the sport, or are we in the business of entertainment? Are we in the business of travel? Are we in the business of, public opinion? What business are we actually in? But maybe we should chat about the poll a little bit. And I wouldn't mind coming back to the customer journey when we have time.
So looking at these results from the people in the webinar here, what are your thoughts there?
So I like this. And I think obviously people are answering the questions, but I think this is where I want to riff a little bit more on customer journey. And so you think about a customer journey, you can think about it as a linear, you can think about a happenstance, you can think about it as a spider web. But I think when you look what's here, I would look back and say to yourself, where is my consumer and what is she doing at different points in time as it relates to my property, right? So you and I are both relatively new to SailGP, so we could use SailGP as an example, or Hyrox, or any of these guys out there unrivaled. And you need to look at what point do they generate some awareness of who you are? At what point are they starting to show interest in who you are? At what point are they starting to make buying decisions? I want to attend, I want to watch, I want to subscribe, I want to get swag. At what point are they then engaging, which usually is either at the event or on screen or at home or whatever, and what happens afterwards? Now, I'm not saying any customer journey has to be that clean. In fact, I think solid lines are a mistake. There's blurs. But I think respectfully, what we get a lot of times is people saying, well, I bought the sponsorship, I got my ads, I got my physical space, and then I'm going to run my social media. But my point is, how is your consumer interacting with the property that you partner with at different points of time? And how do you engage them and bring them into your community? Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, not to make another sports pun. You and I are in the business of working with organizations that have brands need fans. And, you look at somebody like, I'm just throwing it out there, but like the Fanatics of the world, the Fanatics understands the fan, right? Like they're pitching you on, we won, here's a new shirt. I land in Ireland, I get served an Instagram ad from Fanatics because I'm there for the Steelers game. These are all basics. But I think from a planning standpoint, as a brand, I'm going to look at it from a brand standpoint, you really got to put that customer journey on a wall and map it out. Where's all the different touch points? And where are the opportunities that maybe other sponsors of the property haven't looked at? Because quite frankly,
Yeah.
You're not competing with competitive brands. You're competing with the other sponsors.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, looking at the poll results here, we got 4.3% data-driven personalizations. When you talk about customer journey, that actually, there's opportunity right there, right? Of like,
I'll be transparent. That frightens me.
Yeah, that's pretty low.
That
actually,
that number should be flipped on its head. And I think maybe if back to your opening question and the point maybe I missed because I thought it was a bit, probably I think, everybody thinks about this, but personalization, sport and entertainment on a brand activation standpoint has become a business of ones, right?
Yeah.
It's become a business of how do I connect with this individual, and how do I end up bringing her into my community, and then moving her from being a fan of sailing to a fan of my brand.
Yeah. Well, and Mark, one thing I want you to touch on too. This is something you and I have talked about. You have this approach of like checkbox approach versus like committed. Committed and what that real risk is. Can you talk a little bit about that for the people here on it? I thought it was an interesting approach.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things that are vital here, and I appreciate this slide, but let's start at the bottom. So Jays are playing the Dodgers, right? Nobody ever got fired for sponsoring the Los Angeles Dodgers, or the Dallas Cowboys, or the Montreal Canadiens, right? But ultimately, when you look at these emerging properties, you're working with somebody where you're building something. And the term I would almost use is investor. Lots of people talk about ROO and ROI, but when you put your investor hat on, and I think, Jason, this is probably resonates with you individually, because you're building a business and you have these creatures called investors, and you gotta report to them, and you gotta talk to them. And
had a board meeting on Thursday. It was awesome.
Good luck. I hope you're cramming for it on the side of this webinar. I won't be insulted. But I think when you put, as a brand, if you put your investor hat on, and let me go back a step, quick, full disclosure. I don't love the word partner, because a partner means that we're both going to share in profits and loss. So I appreciate everyone likes to use the partner term. But I do believe that a sponsor can be an investor, because like I might invest in a technology, I want to see that technology's value grow. I want to see that business grow. I want to see them get more customers. I want to see them generate more cash flow. I want to see them manage their expenses. And so I think when you think about being an investor, you do have a commitment level. And that commitment level is you're going to work together on a collaborative basis. You're going to build over long term. I think Rolex's deal with SailGP is 10 years, right? That's a nice long time for you to build together. And, if anybody's listened to the podcast about Rolex and gets acquired, Rolex wasn't built overnight. But I think that's why I wanted to start at the bottom, is we're building together. And I'd like for people to think of themselves as investors. And as an investor, you want the value of that property to grow. And your investors probably help you by introducing you to talent, new technologies, opening up doors to customers, getting new exposure opportunities. Those are all the things that a sponsor should be doing with a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it becomes the difference between, and this is kind of what we're talking about here, of amplification, versus activation, right? When you think of the amplification of the sponsors, what should a brand, or if there's property people on this, like what should they be looking at when they think of amplification? And if they're a brand, they're thinking of instead of activation versus amplification, what should be on their minds when it comes to maybe taking a little bit more of a risk here and sponsoring some of these up and coming, opportunities, properties that are there. how do they what should they be looking at from an amplification standpoint rather than just like a check the box activation?
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate that. And so we tend to sort of look at a sponsorship program in very simple ways, which is what's the strategic fit, so the alignment, where do I want to be an investor? Obviously, the activation tends to be related to more of the live experience things, so whether it be on-site or during the opportunity, and the amplification tends to be more out in terms of social media, PR, all those sorts of great things. But I think if you actually dig a little bit deeper and you look at the example of SailGP, you look at examples like Unrivaled, you look at examples like the Baller League, they've turned their events, I'm going to use an old term, effectively into TV studios, right? Where they are built through data, through AR, through VR, through all the sensors, through live streaming, to become this television show. And so I think when you actually say to yourself, I'm going to actually say, where do I want to invest my money? And then when I show up at the event, and I'm going to oversimplify, the event itself is not the event. The event is the television show, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the television show is where you're capturing all this incredible content. But then let's go a step further and let's think out there. And I'm just going to use a very simple example. Lots of us chase influencers. We're now kind of in the business of key opinion leaders more so than influencers because we like people that have authenticity and credibility in key opinion leaders. And yes, I stole that from one of my clients. If she's listening, I'll give her full credit for it. But we also love to find amplifiers. So let me give you an example of amplifiers. If you think about music and entertainment, and maybe you don't like Taylor Swift, but that's okay. But like in Halifax, Nova Scotia, there's a woman who runs a group called the East Coast Swifties. So if you want to actually do an amplification related to a Taylor Swift tour, you need to find all these people that are around the world who are running Swifties fan clubs, and you bring them into your ecosystem, and you equip them with tools, and you let them amplify your messaging. Quite often we say, oh, I'm going to hire this influencer. Jason's got a great following. He's great on camera. We're going to bring him to our event. I'm not saying don't do that. But when you get into amplification, you start to really get out there back to that customer journey. Because you know who's out there? These people called prosumers. Mm-hmm. And a prosumer is somebody who produces as much as they consume, right? Mm-hmm. So they might be somebody who customizes sneakers. They might be somebody who has their own podcast or writes a review. So you want to get out there and find those people. So again, I'm going to use a prosumer or like a Swiftie as my example, just one example of where you want to really go deep for amplification.
I love that. And amplification can come in so many different ways. And Laura, let's pull up this poll here. And this kind of goes back to customer journey. And I want to see what everybody feels like their potential is to amplify your sponsorships. And just see what people are feeling here. Like where is that big opportunity to not necessarily check the box, as Mark talked about, but more, where can some of the focus be on being able to amplify a brand's exposure through that? We've got awareness, and branding has its place, right? I'm always one to say branding is a piece of the overall, sponsorship puzzle, but it's not. When I would sell sponsorships and someone's like, oh, I just want to buy this LED ribbon board. That's all I want. I'm like, I'm not going to sell that to you. Like I don't. That's signage. Yeah, there's so much more that we need to do. And I actually need to ask better questions, right? To make sure that I can dive into what they really want. So amplification of awareness, engagement and activation. A lot of that has to do with actionable marketing. Actionable marketing is something that a brand can really track, that you as the property or the brand as the property can, or the brand can track and say, hey, I was able to drive X amount of new accounts because of what we did here, right? And putting in there conversion of sales and loyalty and retention. So let's go ahead and see what the results are on this, Mark, and we'll see how everybody's feeling. So engagement and activation, amplifying. I kind of had a feeling that would be the highest in the opportunity. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And loyalty and retention. And any thoughts, Mark, as you see these results?
So interesting. I think people are listening to your comment on awareness, and they made sure they changed their vote pretty quickly.
I swayed it.
Yeah. You swayed it, which is good. So a couple of things I want to talk about. Maybe we'll skip awareness. I'll just jump into engagement and activation. I think one of the things we're really seeing in this world where new stadiums, new facilities, new centers, new hospitalities, new types of hotels are coming out. You know, the term placemaking has been used a lot in the last little while. And what placemaking means is when you think about the women's sports stadiums of the future, I mean, think about the bad sexist joke of when you'd go to a football stadium 10 years ago. And if there was a lineup at the men's room, like that was almost unconstitutional. Like we sort of expect women to, well, why the heck should we expect women to line up? Why do we not have places that are made for women, for families, for people with strollers, that people that are expecting, people that want to drink differently? So when I think about engagement and activation, I understand it. And don't get me wrong, the power of the live experience. And if the one thing the pandemic taught us, it was we love to be together in person. I'm going to come back to conversion and sales in a second. I think loyalty and retention is also a beautiful thing. So I made the comment earlier, is SailGP a sport or is it a travel business, right? Is Unrivaled a basketball league or is it a fashion platform, right? Is the Ballers League a, basketball league, or is it a place for, celebrities to kind of, be identified differently by consumers? Yeah. Loyalty and retention is such an important part because going back to this data, and if you think about like the fan, right? The team knows who comes in the stadium. They understand a bit of who follows them as social, but they don't know who's hosting the dinner party. And, they don't know all. As they go further in their data journey, they're going to understand that. And for brand, loyalty and retention is going to be a huge part. I'm a bit shocked, to be honest with you, on conversion and sales. And the reason that is some people are going to argue with me that sponsorship on its own is not a sales driver. But I think if we're going to believe that our industry is going to be a vital part of the marketing mix. Ultimately, marketing's job, changing opinions, driving perception, positioning your brand, opening doors, are all in service of a transaction, right? Like, I hate to say it, but like, if we're sponsored marketers, if we're not willing to engage in the transaction conversation, so go back to whatever customer journey, like if you're selling sponsorship tomorrow, go find out what's the customer journey or the consumer journey that your prospect goes through. Understand their marketing funnels from top of mind down to conversion to loyalty, and map your proposal back to that. And hopefully that conversion to sales will be up. Now, maybe the question people are, the way they're answering is they don't see that as an opportunity to amplify. I appreciate that. But as an outcome, we should be thinking of sales.
I also think that's like a misnomer when it comes to sponsorship as well too. It's like sponsorship isn't a driver, a conversion of sales. It's just more, it's different, and you're going to pay a premium for it. Like we need to kind of get outside of that as well, because brands are looking at things way more deeper than they ever have, and especially on sponsorship, because it is pretty expensive to be involved with the Dodgers or the Blue Jays, right? It's just is. And it probably will be even more next year after going to the World Series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to give you a quick case. Again, I have nothing to do with this company. I have not read this article, but this was a bit of an observation that hit me last year, which is a few years ago, Procter & Gamble did something Procter & Gamble never does, which is they ran a corporate campaign, right? Procter & Gamble has always been brand specific. And they ran that Thank You Mom campaign, which is freaking amazing and a tearjerker. And that did lots from winning awards and being a well-recognized sponsor. But I certainly saw for the 24 games, they went back to their roots, which is brand specific. This brand stands for this. They created different arenas, areas to amplify their brand based on what the brand promise was and what problem it was solving. And I have no data and no insight, and I've never read this article. This is one person's observation, is I think they did that because they realized that they were not getting the conversion, the in-store support, the display, the e-commerce support, and they even did things, where they worked with it was either Walmart or Amazon, I can't remember who, and they had, they had a live shopping day, right, to drive e-commerce.
That's perfect. And Mark, I want to kind of transition here from this into I'm starting to get some good questions coming in. Do you mind if I jump in and start hitting some questions?
Away. People want to know where I get my hairline.
Yeah, there we go. Love it. This comes from Martin Richard. What would you suggest a small disability sports organization with minimal reach, but with a strong CRS capability, do to be more innovative and stand out with sponsors?
So when I think about adaptive sports, and I think about any organization that I'm going to use this term underestimated, respectfully, and again, this is an off-the-cuff answer, so we've never met, but you're not in the business of reach. You're not in the business of reach. You're never going to have more reach than even a mid-sized brand. So just take that out of your equation. If your orientation to your sales calls is reach, then you're manifesting that, and you're almost apologizing for it. So I think what you have to do is, first of all, look at what is your equity. And that is not something I can answer here in a webinar. So that is what you stand for, what your value proposition, what is your promise. How do you then take that equity and provide it to organizations so that they can weave that into their story, they can weave that into activation, and they can weave that into demonstrable results. And those results, to oversimplify it, need to be in two categories. One is, how is that company helping improve society? And how is your partnership helping improve their business? And then the last thing I would say is, and we're going down away from application activation here, but I love to remind people, this is a people business. People are buying you. They are looking back to that earlier slide and saying, if I decide to invest with Mark Harrison, will I get fired? Will he let me down? Will he deliver what he promised? There's a lot of work to do, and those 5 sentences don't cover it. But if I was to summarize and say one thing over and over, please take the word reach out of all your vocabulary. It's not the business you're in.
I love that answer. I have nothing to add to that because that was the perfect answer. From hopefully I'm saying your name right, Hamza Abid. And they're asking, from the perspective of a sales rep looking to acquire event sponsors, do you have any tips for how to maximize success of appealing to potential sponsors in the initial outreach phase and subsequent phases? Any underrated tactics or methods of messaging? What do you emphasize versus de-emphasize? There's kind of a lot of questions in there.
That's okay.
But
I love being underrated.
Yeah.
I finished fourth for school valedictorian, and there was only 3 people on the ballot. I think, look, I'm not a salesperson, so this is just advice from an entrepreneur. Jason, you can jump in here if you want, but I would say this. In that question, I heard this comment about success around first outreach. Your first outreach is going to get you nowhere. I think as a salesperson, you need to think about the sales process very similar to marketing for brand, which is, how do I get known for what we're about? How do people comprehend? So awareness is comprehension, what we do, who we stand for. How do I, build credibility? And then, quite frankly, how am I planting the seeds that are going to happen over a long term? Because the one challenge to all of us who aren't working for pick your big property, is a lot of people don't work for organizations where your phone call gets picked up all the time, right? I mean, I had one job before I started my agency. Everyone used to call me back when I called from my old job because I had money. The day after I quit, I was the same person. Nobody called me back.
Yeah.
I didn't have money anymore. But do you want to?
You quickly realize when you're not in a marketing when you're not in a marketing role and you leave who the real friends are that'll actually call you back after that.
I'm telling you, we didn't have LinkedIn back then, but as soon as that LinkedIn profile changed to no money, I was like, I think that came up in the call display. He doesn't have budget anymore.
That's really funny. Yeah, and I'll take a crack at this too. I think from a sales standpoint, I would really be strategic on who you reach out to, and not just like a blowtorch effect of just going after anybody. I think it's what type of brands really represent like that connect with your brand as well too. And when you make that reach out, do some research, because this is a strategic reach out. Like, do some research on that brand to really understand what they're doing and what means a lot to them. You can look at their commercials. You can look at there's ChatGPT does wonders now for this, and using AI to be able to help you, approach this kind of with this initial reach out. And if you can speak to them in their language, it's a higher chance that you're going to get a reach out. Hey, we have this really idea. We're looking for a strategic partner that is doing ABC. And those are things that you've seen them do in the marketplace. And you got to have some sort of a value proposition to them of why. So that would just be my quick response on that. Or just, being really creative about it and doing a little bit more research there. So thank you for that question.
And I've never heard blowtorch before. I like that. Just,
Just take it. Cool.
Yeah.
Just
take them down the field.
Burn them all up.
I love it.
Jim Andrews, my good buddy Jim. Thanks for joining, Jim. What would your advice be to a brand who's committed, not just checking boxes, and identifies a property that is a perfect fit on brand values, an audience standpoint, etc., but does not, quote, get it and is just looking to check boxes? Do they try to bring the property around, or would they be better off going with another property that knows how to be a good partner but doesn't align as strongly as the first one?
So that was the second best question Jim could have asked. The best question would have been, how the heck did our Steelers lose to the Bengals? Because Jim's a Steelers fan.
Yeah, huge Steelers.
That's what he should have asked.
Yeah, huge Steelers fan.
So, Jim, I could answer this question for 100 hours. And I guess one of the things that I struggle with, and I think, for those who don't know me or know Jim or know you, I mean, I've known Jim as well for many years. I'm going to try to make it short. I think at the end of the day, sponsorship, for better or worse, is a people business. When you're selling, even when Jason was talking earlier about researching the company, research the individual. It wasn't a sales pitch, but I remember years ago, I had a presentation to a new person at a bank, and people are telling me about her. And I'm like, oh, what does she like to do? And we find out that she loved horses, right? So I didn't pitch her a horse program. We had a great chat about horses, and I knew nothing about eventing until 2 days before that meeting. But at the same time, I think we've got to distinguish between a company's values and an individual's values. I don't think any of us are powerful enough to change an individual's values. So I don't know how you hope you're going to bring them along. That to me is a hard one. And I hope, and this might be rose-colored glasses, and I appreciate being accused of that you can move on to somebody who wants to be there. I run 2 charities. One of them I started after George Floyd was murdered. It is for Black leaders, and it's all corporately funded outside of a quarter of it, which I pay personally. And we've got 5 full-time staff. And I can tell you that we had phone calls where I actually had a phone call with a company who told me they needed 2. I said, 2 what? We need 2 black people to come work in our marketing department. So well, that's not really what we do, but I'm curious, why do you need 2? Well, he didn't want to hire one and they'd be lonely. So I said, you have nobody right now. You want me to find you a pair. Like, do I look like Noah? Like, I don't, but more importantly, like that call ended so quickly, but I was just curious and I thought, wow. So I don't know. I don't have the best answer for you, but I think it's about moving on to the next person.
I would say, Jim, my thoughts around this are, I would rather do business with people who get it, and if you're setting yourself up for not success out of it, it's just going to end in not a good way. So, and Mark has said this multiple times. It's like, hey, this is a relationship business. Relationship means everything. And so, sometimes you got to pivot, right, and find just another opportunity that can help drive the same kind of results, from it, and do that. Otherwise, if they don't get it, it's probably going to end in some sort of a challenging way, right? And so, you want long-term partnerships.
And you're going to alienate your own community. You're going to alienate your own community, right?
Yeah.
You're going to alienate your own community. So you got $10 from a sponsor, but you lost $50 in ticket sales.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. All right. Last question here, Mark, as we near the end here. It says from Alicia Lashley. Hi, Mark. Alicia Lashley from U of T. I'd love to hear how you think Canes made that change to be a trailer in sponsorship. What would you say is the first step to becoming that innovative property?
Sorry, who made the change?
Said, I'd love to hear how you think Canes made that change to be a trailer in sponsorship. Is this Raising Canes? I don't know. Alicia, maybe we can get a little more.
I don't know. I'm wondering if we have a typo here.
I'm thinking maybe there's
am
a
I
typo.
missing it?
There could be
I feel like I'm missing.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody's not walking and listening and typing on their phone.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, Alicia, sorry we don't have maybe the context on that one. But feel free to submit again, and we can answer that question a little bit later, even offline if we need to there.
Yeah.
Oh, she just said Canes Lions.
Oh, Canned Lions. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. It's Canned.
Is it Canned? Is that how you say it?
It's Canned. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just opened the chat to see it. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
there you go.
Great question. So,
I'm saying it wrong. That was me. I didn't pronounce it right. That was my.
It's all good. It's all good. I was debating, was it Canes? Was it the Lion King? What are we talking about here? I think that at the end of the day, award shows and their producers are businesses. And when they see where money is being spent, so if you look at the Cannes Lion as an advertising award festival, and you look at the cases that are being entered, and you look at the people that buy the big exhibition areas on the beaches, they buy out the hotels they sponsor, whether they're Meta or, as I mentioned, like the New York Times of the world or Stagwell. These companies know that, obviously television is still driven by live sports. A lot of media is driven by live sports. Live sports is a very important business line for the TikToks, the Snapchats of the world. So I don't think it was the event as much as all of these organizations who sell stuff. Like, we're selling a lot of stuff through to sports, right? Like Super Bowl ads are like nobody. When was the last time you heard somebody say, and I'm not picking on these other things. When was the last time you heard somebody say, "Here we're doing a sneak peek of our World Series ad," right? So you get these really high-profile sports, obviously like F1 and all these other guys, and so the award show, as I said before, is a lagging indicator. The marketing world understands the power of sport. Sports doing incredible things, and even though we're talking today about more innovative sports, let's be clear, I give, like them or dislike them, I give the NFL all the credit in the world. Like what they're doing internationally is unbelievable. I was fortunate enough to be in Dublin a few weeks ago, and they're taking their international product is amazing. So again, the Cannes Lion Festival is seeing, oh my gosh, lots of money being spent, sports marketing, big brands, the platforms want it. We got to adapt.
Awesome. Thanks, Alicia, for that question. And before we head out, I know we're at the top of the hour here, but let's before everybody heads back here, Mark, what's the one thing everyone should kind of take away?
Advocate for this business. We are, it's interesting. I listened to the ad agencies talk about having lost the C-suite to consulting firms. I believe that when you think about sponsorship as an investment, the C-suite should pay attention to it. And so you can advocate for this business by putting out your own thought leadership. You can advocate for this business by ensuring that what you're doing is data infused, research led. You can advocate for this business by not using a blowtorch to sell. That doesn't help any of us. So I think all of us, we're in the same business and we're on the same ocean, and we need that ocean to get high. And I think that this is just one old man's point of view. I think AI is the best thing to ever happen to sports marketing, because advertising is going to be easy to do, quickly done. Copywriters and media people are going to be out of business in weeks. But the consumer at some point is going to get sick and tired of, is this real, is it fake, is it fleeting? But those live experience moments, amplified and activated, are going to be super powerful. So my point of view in life, two comments. One is advocate for the industry, and we should be grateful for AI.
And speaking of advocating and amplifying, just a reminder for everybody there's a little button there for you to donate to Big Brothers and Big Sisters, right? Amplify the work there. And we appreciate everybody for coming. We were able to donate over $300 today, US dollars, to Toronto, to Big Brother Big Sisters. So thank you everybody for coming and being here. And on behalf of Sponsor CX, we're honored to be able to do that. And Mark, thank you again for being here. Thank you to everybody for being involved in the webinar today. We are looking to do these monthly with a new guest. So please follow us on LinkedIn, as we'll post those as they come up. So thank you again, Mark, and appreciate you taking time with us today.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.